Giants 14, Commanders 7. Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And it's a victory podcast. Been way too long. One of the largest gaps in a long time in a victory podcast because we got spoiled with some winning last year. So the Giants moved to 2-5, 1.5 games out of the wild card. Good to be back. I'm undefeated in the Giants games I've attended, Justin.
Yeah.
Once again, never lost.
Yeah, we may have to have a conversation at the end. What is it going to take to get Bobby Skinner to keep coming to these Giants games? We may just have to LPG you and send you everywhere.
I've got multiple DMs of people being like I think seriously, like, hey, I will pay for your season tickets. So it was good to be in the stadium, get a win.
Lo and behold, I have an extra ticket.
Yeah, but my brother was there. I definitely harassed him a lot because that was nice. Who's a Commanders fan. So we'll get into all of it, Justin. Now, we're going to start with offense. Usually in a game like this, you would start with defense, but it's the second win of the season. You're falling 2-5. We're kind of staying afloat, and you have the Tyrod Taylor stuff, who I thought played pretty damn well, despite the fact that they only scored 14 points. And there's so many facets of this offense. You have the Hyatt big plays, offensive line. Like, I actually want to talk about those cats and how I thought they performed pretty damn well. Pass blocking wise, run blocking wise is a whole different story. Man, where do you want to start? I mean, you just want to start with Tyrod Taylor in this passing game?
I want to start with Tyrod, but I like to give some thoughts, some kind of macro thoughts at the top, big picture stuff. Like, a win is a win. I'm so glad we're celebrating a home victory Monday. I think, like, from this game, Bobby, I think you see glimpses of what this team can be. And I think that is the biggest positive from this game. They have an explosive offense in the first half, which is what we were expecting in the summer and in preseason, right? We have a dominant defense that dictates the terms of the game and takes advantage of a bad QB. But I will say, like, I want to put this caveat in the beginning because we are going to talk about a lot of positives. We're going to talk about a Giants victory. But I do walk away from this game being like, Washington did way more to lose this game than the Giants did to win it. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about it. But that's like where I'm at kind of coming to you. I'm so glad that we are back in the winning column. We won again. And I'm excited to be here with you kind of in person talking about this. But I feel like Washington did way more to lose this game than the Giants did to win it necessarily.
Yeah, and I mean, the defense has been really good through the last 4 games.
The defense is now like, I'm now starting, like, this is like a legit, that's like the one like legit storyline coming out of this game. Like, this defense can, especially against bad offenses that we have coming up, Bobby, they could do something.
They held Seattle to 17 points offensively because did the pick six in that game.
Bad offense.
So out of 4 games, the only bad defensive performance was against this Miami offense. That's insane. And even in that, you had 2 interceptions. You had 2 turnovers in that game. This game and then last week versus Buffalo, who I know they've had their own struggles, but hey, they have at least a capable offense of being awesome. So defense has been really balling out. But the conversation before the game, Justin, for me, when I was, because I was there talking to the tailgate and stuff, was like if they don't win this game, right, you can't even you can't even get fake hope for the season, right? Like, I think me and you both agree we're not like, season, like, this is it. This is the turnaround, right? There is a lot of issues. Commanders have had, they aren't a very good team. But as you go into this stretch of games versus teams that are beatable, like the Jets, like the Raiders, like, you could not start it off with a loss versus the Commanders and fall to 1-6. It would have been like a meltdown in Giants land, and kind of rightfully so.
Yeah, no, they did what they needed to do. Hey, this Giants team has had a lot of games where they haven't won and they've gotten their asses kicked. So I'm not going to fully complain about a winning effort that wasn't perfect. They got the win. They did what they needed to do. Bobby, let's talk about this offense, Tyrod Taylor. Yeah,
I mean, I thought Tyrod operated this offense really well, and the offense obviously looked a lot better in the first half than the second half. Didn't score any points in the second half. He was getting the ball out, like, on time. You had the deep passes to Jalen Hyatt, and we've seen, Tyrod Taylor throw the ball down the field consistently these last couple of games. Whether it's a Buffalo who kind of didn't really give you a ton of those pre-snap, but when they, basically whenever teams have given them the pre-snap look, he's went there, right? Yeah. When Buffalo got into man the very few times they did, you threw the slot phase to Darius Slayton. And then today, the 2 Jalen Hyatt catches, 2 catches for 75 yards, basically did had the Arizona game all over again. He's averaging 23 yards per catch, or 21 yards per catch this year. Only 9 catches for the season, but 4 of them are explosives. The first one, both of them, but like the first one, you get in the third down, and I'm watching up top. So you're third down early in the game, you're dialed in. Like, what is this defense doing? And you see Hyatt by himself on the other side, and they just rotate the safety away.
Yeah.
Like the safety already, like before any rotations, like they might be able to get a shot to Hyatt. And then they rotated it away, and you're like, you have to throw it. Tyrod does a great job, good ball placement. And then the second one again, and the later in the game,
safety is on the opposite side of the field.
They have a single high safety on the opposite hash, and it's like, okay, we are going to throw this. Like, this is where, if you're a Commanders fan, like you have to be livid at this coaching staff, not just like in-game decisions like replay, accepting a penalty when the Giants were going to kick a field goal on 4th and goal at the 3 or 4, whatever it was. It's like they didn't game plan for Jalen Hyatt, right? Because we haven't seen Jalen Hyatt get a ton of catches after the Arizona game. It's like, well, get him more involved. Well, he's playing more, but there is a reason why he did fall to the third round. He has to work on his route running in the intermediate short, and teams teams were like they're covering Jalen Hyatt over the top, right? Rightfully so. So he hasn't been able to make a bunch of plays and have a bunch of catches and yards. It's not because they just don't want to use him. It's like, hey, the way that he's good, teams are game planning specifically for him, which allows stuff underneath for other guys. But the Commanders just didn't, right? Yeah. And maybe this is just a result of Hyatt getting a lot more volume in plays, where it's like, hey, you can't always, like, sometimes you got to trust your corner.
He's now a starter, by the way. Like he's starting.
Oh yeah, it's been a few games now where he's just starting over Isaiah Hodgins. So, and then I also like Hyatt had the pass breakup on the arm punt by Tyrod Taylor.
Well, that was. I mean, it would have been like a punt, but it was a good play by him to break up the ball.
Yeah, but I mean, you completed big, deep passes for Tyrod Taylor, and he's doing it at a solid passing rate too.
18.3 average depth of target heading into this game for Jalen Hyatt. What do you think that's like gone up to? It's above 20, right? He didn't get a single
27.
Target. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. It's so funny that we I think we might have talked.
He had 4 deep targets for sure. Did he have? No, he had 5 deep targets. Yeah, he had 5 deep targets.
Because there was one game. Third down where it was just
there was the arm punt, and then there was one where he was bracketed and went out of bounds, and then he almost had that touchdown.
Yeah, that's right.
Where he had the one. So yeah, every single target was a deep pass.
It's got to be close to 30 yards. It's so funny how we like in camp we're like, this could be his year. We're 20 yards per reception and stuff. Like, he doesn't have a lot of catches, but he has a lot of yards.
I did my bold prediction stream on Bleacher Report, and I was like, Jalen Hyatt's going to be top 5 in yards per catch. I don't know how many yards he's going to have, but he's going to be top 5 in yards per catch.
Yeah, for sure. But we'll get back to Tyrod. Like, Tyrod's willingness to throw the deep ball. 2 weeks in a row with a positive CPOE, completion percentage over expected. And now, according to Next Gen, Tyrod Taylor and Geno Smith sit atop of the league in CPOE at plus 6.8. Tyrod does qualify even with 80 attempts, and there's a lot of other quarterbacks that have like way north of 200 attempts. So obviously take Tyrod's low passing attempts with a grain of salt. So he's been accurate. Like, I think that's like the biggest thing over these last 2 weeks. He's been accurate, and he's been accurate at a higher rate than expected. And I do think what makes the difference in getting a completion that maybe you aren't supposed to complete, Bobby, is how often you complete the deep ball. And I know you have some numbers on that.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, in this game, he was 3 for 6, 103 yards and 20-plus yard throws. Now, unfortunately, the 3 completions actually led to 0 points because you had the missed field goal.
Yep.
You had the fumble by Saquon.
Yep.
And then they had the sack when they didn't block the backside on the defensive end on the Darren Waller deep pass. But on the season, he's 5 for 11, so a little under 50%, which is very efficient, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's very efficient. That's good numbers, even if you're not like doing it at a high rate. And he's not doing it at a high rate, but he's throwing it at 12.2%, which is actually middle of the pack in the NFL when you look at season-long numbers.
That's like what you want. You want balance, right?
Yeah, but when you compare it to like Daniel Jones last year, Daniel Jones last year was 4.9%. Like it's over double what they were doing last year. And again, some of that has to do with hype, but some has to do with just willingness to do it. Like, he showed more willingness to do it. And this is coming from Taylor, who's in his career has been mostly a conservative quarterback.
Very conservative.
And he's showing a willingness to use Darren Waller and Jalen Hyatt. Like the Darren Waller touchdown, man, like who had 7 catches for 98 yards and a touchdown. I never thought it would get to that point, but I was just relieved. Like, okay, we don't have to do the week 10.
We don't have to do
Darren
the Kenny
Waller,
Galladay
all-day touchdown thing. But Ron Rivera, moron move, accepting that penalty. And like they run a smash concept, which is that high-low, and they put the seam with it on Darren Waller. And the Commanders' linebackers suck, right? So again, take some of the offensive success with a grain of salt.
David Mayo was starting, which I'm pretty sure heading into this game, he had one defensive snap of the game.
We remember how bad David Mayo was. But Waller beat him on that crosser for the big play. But the touchdown, man, that was like good shit where he gets he just kind of gives you just that one inside step and just keeps him out and then bounces and then pops it out on the seam. And Tyrod just puts A+ ball placement on that to put that
little back shoulder.
Put that on his back, on his outside shoulder. Just A+ ball placement. The corner route occupies the safety just enough. Fired it in there. 3rd and goal. Like, no, we're not going to check down and live for the field goal. We're going to fire the seam in, and that's where Waller helps you. So just like good stuff offense. And I know they scored 14 points, and I do want to talk negative offensively eventually because there is negatives on this offense, and the reason why. They haven't scored more than 20 points one time this season, right? Like, my challenge was please just score 20 points on the Friday game. They didn't do it.
Almost.
0 points after halftime. So, again, using Waller, using Jalen Hyatt, and then on that touchdown drive, you kind of had – it was like kind of a beautiful mix of everybody. With the Waller touchdown drive, you had – Wandale had his best yak play of the year.
Oh, I think maybe of his career.
Maybe. I think we can look that up and see if that's the most yak.
Like he had a broken tackle, plus he juked a guy that resulted in a Washington defender running into another Washington. It was a sick
and then
yak
he
play.
kind of ran through guys a little bit too.
And it was a 20+ yard play too.
Yeah, and then the next play you have Slayton on that little play action crosser where the linebacker's just frozen. Yep. You get it behind him.
2 22-yard plays in a row, and then that started everything. And then you had 4 first down plays in a row. I mean, I can't tell you the last time we had back-to-back 20+ yard plays. And I definitely, I don't need to look up that. I'm pretty damn sure that is the first time all year that we had 4 consecutive plays of first downs.
Yeah, well, you had the 22-yarder, the Wandale, the 22-yarder, the Slayton, and then the little 13-yard pass to Waller, which was good. And then they run the draw with Tyrod Taylor for 20 yards. Now, then you did get into a 4th and goal where you're going to be punting, or would have been kicking the field goal, right?
No misses.
They're at the 2-yard line. I just don't think with the way the Giants have been playing, they are not going for it there, which is why I didn't understand Rivera. Not even then. Like, wouldn't you want 4th and goal to 2? Like, via their defense to give them one shot to make a stop, and then you have the Waller touchdown on that. So the Giants are playing with a thin margin of error, but Tyrod, and I'm excited to watch the all-22. I'm sure there'll be some okay, there's this, but overall, just 9.6 yards per attempt, which is really, really good. You
average depth of target, I think, was a 10.
Yeah, 10.5. This was a good game for Tyrod, I do want to get into why they only scored 14 points within it too.
I even have this for you too. I mean, we just broke down some of those Slayton plays, Wandale plays, Waller plays. Giants offense had 5 plays of 20+ yards in the first half. That's the most in a half since 2019 versus Washington. Giants are pretty good against Washington. 5 different players. This is really cool to me. Not just 5 plays of 20+ yards. 5 different players had receptions of 20+ yards as well. I mean, that's spreading it out. So then you had a total of 6 20+ yard plays, maybe 7 if you include if Tyrod Taylor had a 20+ yard run. So it's 7 total plays of 20+ yards that the Giants had this past week against the Commanders.
Before we get into the bad of the Giants offense, also the deep stuff, open stuff underneath, right?
Yes. Can I talk about
the
that?
Waller crosser?
The Waller crosser, the 27-yard play. Darren Waller hit, I believe, a little over 19 miles per hour according to Next Gen. So hey, if you're questioning if Darren Waller's slowing down or if he's lost a step, he certainly has not. I want to talk about this
as
well.
Touchdown?
I want to talk about the Saquon touchdown because I really looked at it from the Next Gen dots, and I think I was able to see it clearly. You let me know if you agree with me or not.
Yeah, you did.
The receiving touchdown was really nice play design and player execution. They kind of met each other perfectly, where you have Waller and Hyatt running down the field. I think Hyatt's just running a streak. Waller's kind of running like a crosser, but he's running down the field. He's pulling everybody down, linebackers, safeties, corners. They're demanding attention from the defense. That leaves Barkley 1v1 versus Jamin Davis. Makes a guy miss, touchdown Giants.
Yeah, like you said, you had the deep concepts, which creates the space underneath. Tyrod was able to extend, get the ball to Saquon. Saquon makes the guy miss. And then as soon as Saquon made the guy miss, you're like, okay, this is a score. Like as soon as he didn't make a miss, but he was playing broke the tackle from behind.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, that's a score. So I want to talk about the offensive line.
Oh.
In the rewatch, that was my thing. It was like, okay, I watched the route concepts at the game and stuff, like take advantage of being able to see from up high. I thought the offensive line held up pretty damn well as pass blockers. Run game is a different story, and the running game for the Giants is just as bad as a whole this season. But they allowed 4 sacks. But I want to go through the 4 sacks. One, you have the backside defensive end, Chase Young, on play action. Like, that's a schematic thing, right? That's a schematic thing, and it's like that's the 3rd time that's happened this year.
Was that the first of the game? Was that the one that we looked at together?
No, there's another one.
Got it.
There's another one where they're in the red zone, and they run an RPO, and Shepard falls down, and so your Tyree Phillips is just doing a hinge block on the backside. He's not trying to stop a guy from getting to the quarterback on that play. He's trying to stop a guy from coming in on the run game.
Yeah, that's a play that's designed for the quarterback to get the ball out of his hands quick, and Sterling Shepard falls down.
You credit that one to Sterling Shepard and maybe Tyrod for not scrambling and throwing it away, and nonetheless not on the offensive line. And then Pugh got beat. He got Chase Young timed him up on the 3rd down. That's offensive line wise. And then the 4th one, Tyree got not dominated, but he did get beat around the corner around 8-9 yards. And Tyrod stepped up, but the block and release from Bellinger got the sack. So it wasn't like really there was like one really bad play that I thought that the offensive line had where it was just bad. And that was like a McKeithen block, and Tyrod was able to check it down to Saquon. I thought again, that was my rewatch, and I thought they held up well. Now, the offensive line report, when I could see the All-22 film, I really want to look at Tyree Phillips' technique and how he looked coming from Philly. Pugh, again, got to rewatch these guys individually because I was just watching them as a whole. But outside of that Chase Young sack, I thought, he's got good footwork and hand technique. Run game is a lot different, but they were holding up pretty damn well against the Commanders' defense that we were like, this Commanders' defense sucks, which it does, but they have the pass rush, and they were able to slow down that pass rush.
Yeah, and I guess the main thing is the theme of the offensive line the last 2 weeks, and I got some flack for saying that Justin Pugh has helped the offensive line online, and I think, here's how it's helped. Every 4 to 5 plays isn't a disaster, which that's been a you talking point. Where and I agree with you. Where if you look at
Tyree Phillips has looked good too.
Every game of the season so far, maybe besides the Seattle game where Daniel Jones took a lot of those sacks, every game this season it's been okay. Every 4 to 5 plays, you have somebody on the offensive line having an absolutely disaster play, and that destroys a drive.
Guys.
And it just destroys a drive. And I feel like you haven't had that the last 2 weeks, where it's just disaster plays.
Well, let's go through it game by game. Dallas,
everyone
just got the shit kicked out of them. Arizona, they held up well. 49er got the shit kicked out of them. Giants threw quick game all game. Week 4 is Seattle, right?
Yeah.
You're going to look at that and say 11 sacks, offensive line, and they were bad, but they were bad after the pick 6. That was the game where you credit a lot of sacks to DJ. Outside of that, I think DJ has 1 sack credit to him. Miami game, pretty damn bad. Then last week versus Buffalo, not great, but they weren't
wasn't inoperable.
This game was probably either this game or Arizona was their best game pass blocking wise.
I mean, I would give the nod to this game just because that front is more talented.
Yeah, the reason they did well versus Arizona is because their front is dog shit.
They're bad, yeah.
Yeah, so this is definitely their best game.
Yeah.
So hopefully we get Andrew Thomas back. I miss watching him play football. So
ask us a mailback question on when Andrew Thomas comes back. What's the configuration of the line?
Yeah.
That's a fun question.
So here's why I think the offense.
John Michael Schmidt's come back too. Underrated storyline.
Yeah, and that moves Bredesen back to guard.
Yeah, which he needs that.
And I almost want, if Tyree Phillips can play right, I almost want to see Evan Neal move the guard eventually.
Oh, jeez.
Why did the offense only score 14 points despite all the good things we've said for the last 19 minutes? The running game is bad, right?
Yeah.
Like this running game sucks. You can't get a running game go. Saquon had 2 rushes for 21 yards after the Hyatt big play in the first quarter or second quarter, whatever it was. Besides that, he had the running backs had 22 carries for 60 yards. That's less than 3 yards per carry. Saquon averaged 3.7 yards per carry even with those runs. You know what the highest individual game yards per carry for a running back with more than 2 carries is? It's Saquon week 1 versus Dallas had 4.25.
Yeah.
4.25 for a team that's Saquon Barkley is a bad for the season. For that to be your best individual game, it's fucking insane.
Yeah.
It's really, really bad. And they just can't get a running game going like they did last year. The running game really since midway last year has been very, very bad. And this just, I think it's a lot to do with up front. Saquon didn't look his same self versus Buffalo. It's hard to tell it from the broadcast, but Saquon made plays in this game. So I thought Saquon did look good in this game. It's an offensive line stat. Like that,
yeah.
You don't have numbers that bad without it being an offensive line stat. So I don't blame it on Saquon, but the running game is so bad.
Yeah, we gave a little credit to the offensive line for the pass blocking, but I think it falls squarely. Oh no, water bottle exploding. I think it falls square like the inefficient running game. I think it falls squarely on the O-line because for the second week in a row, Saquon Barkley had a positive rushing yards over expected per attempt again. And then I think this week was better than last week in terms of 48% of his carries went for more than what was expected according to Next Gen. So that's a stat that I like to look at, especially since, if I don't consider myself as smart as Bobby Skinner breaking down film, that's a stat that I like to look at that basically says what is the running back doing versus what are the offensive line doing. And on the offensive line is not giving Saquon a lot of help right now.
And I thought the coaching staff tried to run the game out in the second half, and this is where you can get on them.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about first down. Because first down really tells the story of what a coaching staff is trying to do.
Yeah.
In the first half, they averaged 7.3 yards per play on first down.
How many passes, how many runs?
Passing game, they were 8 for 8 with 114 yards.
Hell yeah.
2 sacks for negative 17 yards. So
okay.
You do have the negatives. In the rushing game, they were 7 for 27 yards, which is just slightly below 4. So not fair, not bad. And that includes some negative ones in there,
Pass
too.
sets up the run. Boom.
Second half.
Who said that?
2.7 yards per play on first down.
No.
Passing plays, they were 0 for 1 for 0 yards and then 1 Tyrod scramble for 5 yards. So they didn't complete a single pass. They attempted to throw the ball twice in the second half, and one of those ended up being a scramble, and then the rushing yards was 7 for 20 yards. They just kind of tried to run the game out and didn't allow, and this is a conversation we had about the coaching staff last year, is don't get first down is kind of the time to run your offense because you can get to the checkdowns, right?
Yeah.
We understand you kind of have to run some limited offense with this offensive line and there's a ton of factors. But first down is not, I don't think it's the time to totally limit it because again, that's when you get to your checkdowns and you look at, they had 2 sacks for 17 yards. Well, one of them was play action unblocked end off the edge, right? That's not drop back passing with checkdowns. That is kind of a boom or bust type play. Yeah. And the other sack was negative 4 yards. So even though it was a sack, it wasn't a negative 13-yard sack. So I think the 2 reasons why they only scored, and you had the turnovers, right? You have Saquon fucking fumble. That's where I get get frustrated with Saquon. It's the game was over. That game's even if they kick a field goal, the game is most likely over, and then you fumble the ball down there.
And also, how rare is it that if the Giants are a good team that's winning a lot of games, the Giants are in this scenario quite often. But how rare is it that this drive ends the game, man? You're driving down the field goal, touchdown, whatever. It basically does end it, makes it a 2-score game. And Saquon Barkley, the superstar, the quote-unquote best player on the team, like a lot of fans say, Andrew Thomas I think is better, the best player on the team, right? Let's put the game in his hands. Let's put the game in Saquon Barkley's hands. And even with that 40-yard Hyatt play, I think Barkley was ripping off some good runs that drive.
Look, 5, 6, 7. That was probably his second best drive of the game, and then you have the fumble.
What you want, and that's where you earn your money, bro. Earn your money, bro, by being the closer. And instead, you fumble the ball, and that it was a really, really gut-wrenching feeling, and kind of a feeling that made me angry.
And that was a 10-play, 72-yard drive. Now, one of the big plays was a third down illegal contact on the defense. But hey, that's the name of the game.
But you were talking about coaching. I want to go back to that too.
But if you don't have the Saquon turnover and if you don't miss a field goal, you have at minimum 20 points, which is what I asked for before this game.
There you go.
And
there you go.
They still weren't able to get it, but they got the win.
But I want to talk about the coaching and the offensive approach in the second half. They did the same shit last year in the Washington tie at home. They did the same shit. They were up by 7 for most of the second half. I think for like
that game they were running play action on 2nd and 15 and shit.
But they were up for this. I think it's still like the same storyline exists of being up by 7 points for. They were like up by like 11 minutes in the second half, in that game, and then for most of the second half they were up by 14, and then they were up by 7 for a good amount of the second half. So it's the same thing of. You got to be able to put the game away. And I'm not going to complain about that because this Giants team, they've had trouble winning this year. I'm going to take a win, but let's not make this a habit against Washington, at least not until they figure their own shit out. And they clearly have not figured their own shit out. So is there anything else?
We need to talk about the defense. We've been in this podcast for 25 minutes, and we haven't talked about how great this defense was.
There's one thing we need to bring up with receivers. We talked about Hyatt. Slayton had a crosser. Waller was 5 for 5, 77 yards in the first half. Wandale had the fun yak play. We need to talk about Sterling Shepard very quickly.
I thought that'd be a special teams segment. Let's tease that because we got to talk about this. The defense won this game, so we got to talk about this defense.
Let's talk about the defense. Special teams segment at the end.
Wink came at them, right? And you're like, well, Wink always goes, not like this game. I mean, from start to finish, he was fucking sending it, right? Like this was I'm just going to send it game for Wink Martindale. Like they got into those cover zero looks and ran them on first and second down, which that's been more of a third down staple for them. And not just also getting the looks, like sending the cover zero blitzes, like the Pinnock sack, they sent 7 guys. They sent 7 guys, and I don't think that was a third down either. You get 6 sacks and 12 QB hits, so more sacks than they had the entire season. And so it's a combination of Wink sending it, Howell not being able to deal with it, and Dex just was a wreck. Like I went through the sacks, right? You have the Dex and McFadden sack, right? Dex beats Gates.
Dex got there first. McFadden cleaned it up.
Yeah. Then Dex just beats Gates again. Then you do the Leonard Williams sack. Dexter Lawrence just cleared like 3 people in a stunt, setting that up for him. Yeah. Then you have the Pinnock blitz, which Dex helped. Then Dex just beats Andrew Wiley while they're blitzing. Right, and then Dex frees up on I can't remember. I think this was like a Kayvon. I can't remember who got this sack, but like freed it up on a Bobby Okereke blitz. I think
it was a half Kayvon, half Dex. Kayvon beats his guy around the corner, engages with them initially, but it was Dex getting the pressure up the middle that allowed Kayvon to come and kind of clean it up.
They had no fear of these Commanders receivers. They didn't have Adoree Jackson. They were starting Deonte Banks, and I cannot wait to talk about the Deonte Banks play. Trey Hawkins and Cordell Flott, and Wink was like, I do not give a shit. I see a quarterback who was going to melt under this pressure, and boy did he. Not just the sacks, but was inaccurate, was flustered, was scrambling around with his head cut off, like almost had a pick six to cave, not a pick six, an interception to cave on.
Would have been a pick six.
Even on the Banks interception, it was like a ball that was kind of fluttering. I don't know what the deal. Maybe Dex got a piece of that one. But yeah, I mean, the Wink came at them all game, and finally Dex put up some stats. I mean, not just stats. His film will be better in this game than it was any other game of the season too. Yeah. But they finally are just like, you know what, we're gonna send it after you all game. We're tired of having 5 sacks on the season. We're gonna have 11-7, which is probably still worse than the NFL. But damn it was good. I kept on being like, hey, they're 1 sack away from their season total with 4 minutes left in the first half, and then they got another one. It's like they tied it, and then the first drive of the second half, they got a sack.
Yeah, man, I'm actually, what I want to do tomorrow morning is I actually want to compile Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau's stats over the last 3 games versus Washington and just see what that looks like in comparison to what their season totals are from last year, and then even heading into this year too. Because man, they feast against Washington, and it's always fun to do well against your divisional opponents. Washington, they were 1 for 15 on third down, 6.7%. That's not too good. Pretty sure they were 0 for in the first half. What was the only third down conversion they had? You know this.
It was the Terry McLaurin deep pass over Deonte Banks.
Yeah, finally, I will say this is
1 for 15 on third down. That is insane.
This is another Washington is dumb point that I'm going to talk about. I don't understand why Terry McLaurin had a good game. What was he, 6 for 90 something?
Yeah.
6 catches. I mean, I think he could have feasted a whole lot more because they finally realized that the Giants were running single high safety for the entire game. They were putting guys in the box, and Terry McLaurin is going up against young corners the entire game. Which, hey, I know Deonte Banks is having a pretty decent start. Nick McLeod made a pass deflection, but they could have really taken advantage of Terry McLaurin going up against young corners, and I feel like they didn't.
The one third down conversion, the deep Terry McLaurin pass over Deonte Banks. Like, when he threw that ball, Terry McLaurin hadn't beat him yet, but he did like a better job ball tracking. Banks lost it a little bit towards the end.
Yep. He had the hit to the head that wasn't a hit to the head by McKinney, too, that added another 15 yards on.
Yeah.
So they started just doing that, and it's like, well, I don't know why you didn't do that sooner. Washington also did not have a drive gain more than 31 yards until the final 2 drives of the game, which those final 2 drives of the game were a blocked field goal and a turnover on downs. Dex had 2 sacks, 4 QB hits, a tackle for loss. Kayvon with the sack and a half, 2 QB hits, a tackle for loss. Leonard Williams, a sack, 2 QB hits, tackle for loss. Pinnock with 1 sack, 1 QB hit, 1 tackle for loss. Jason Pinnock, underrated, sneaky, good, really good contributor for this Giants defense this year. We were wondering who's going to fulfill that box safety role, and I think Pinnock
What's crazy
has
is he
done
doesn't play in the box most of the time,
Right.
but whenever he's in the box, he just plays fast as fuck.
Him and McKinney had really alternated today, but from playing deep and then playing in the box, those were really
Because they were blitzing so much. Like I think they were like, we want McKinney on the back end. We trust him more.
And then Micah McFadden with a half a sack plus 2 QB hits as well. So a lot of guys stuffing the stat sheet today.
Yeah, I mean, the pass rush was relentless, and it was by guys winning like Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams, and it was by just blitzing and throwing blitzes where they were running stunts and stuff too, which the Giants don't really do a ton of either. They kind of just like stay in your lane. Let's try and get someone free by pre-snap alignment. So, yeah, I mean, that pass rush was just relentless all game long. Let me talk about the Deonte Banks interception. And again,
please.
1 for 15 on third down. I'm going to do a breakdown on this, and if I've tweeted about it, so if someone else does a breakdown on this, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. I got to find the film of it. I did the film breakdown of Deonte Banks in college, and one of the things I talked about was him in zone coverage because he's known as a man corner, and he is a man corner. In zone, though, you would see like more instinctive plays where he kind of plays a little freer and loose. And there was a couple plays I used in that film breakdown where he's kind of playing the flats, right? Or he's playing quarters, and he's covering his responsibility, and he baits the quarterback and throwing to a ball deeper, like behind him, and he just like kind of baits it into it and explodes into it. That's exactly what happened on that interception, right? Where he's kind of playing he's playing his zone. There's no one really in it, but he's got his eyes on the QB, but he's not just bailing and going and stopping the QB from making that throw. He kind of baits Sam Howell into making that throw, and then just good athleticism, good catch over the shoulder. Like that's for a rookie corner in the NFL. That is like your athleticism meets like a good IQ play, right? And again, it wasn't a great throw by Howell, but that's my favorite play of the game by far. I mean, that might be my favorite play of the defense this season by far. Like that was just like, that was beautiful, beautiful football from Deonte Banks. Like that's a football coach's play right there.
How about that Giant factor? You picked a player that didn't even play.
That's the second time that I've been at a Giants game and a cornerback who I picked as a Giant factor did not play in the game.
Janoris Jenkins.
The other one was Janoris Jenkins when he was calling fans a word.
A bad word. Good Giant factor, Justin.
So yeah, good Giant factor. Now maybe your guy wouldn't have been as much of a factor. Who was Danny's? Darren Waller.
Yeah, he may have. Yeah, that was
Danny
a good
has
Giant
a way of
factor, too.
doing Giant factors of like, hey, star player.
I want to give a shout out to Cordell Flott. I don't know if he had like a good game. I think there was one play where he allowed a catch to Dotson and he slipped, but that pass deflection, like that, I actually tweeted. I'm like, this is my reminder to go, especially when All 22 comes out, but I may even do it on the broadcast, depending on if they got a good replay of it. Cordell Flott, I think it was Curtis Samuel, and this might have been like a second or third down. Cordell Flott had like a diving pass deflection where it looked like Samuel was open, and he was kind of trailing behind.
Oh, on the little corner route?
No, it was a crossover in the middle of the field. It would have been a big explosive play. Flott dives, and it didn't initially. It looked like Samuel maybe drops it, or it was just a bad throw. But I think Flott got his hand on it, and it was just a really like insanely athletic, high effort play. So Shout out Cordell. I mean, Cordell Flott.
We were talking with Diggy, and it's like, is Flott just simply a game player?
Yeah.
Because he was horrible in training camp.
Yeah. He makes like one play a game where it's like, holy shit. Like, he could be not having like a great game, or he could be allowing catches, especially in zone. And, you know,
He does make a lot of mistakes in zone coverage, which is, I'm sure, has a reason with him not playing very much.
But he'll make one play in man coverage like almost every game. Like did it against Tyreek Hill a couple weeks ago, where I'm like, damn, like where's this, bro? Let's see, let's do this more often. So Cordell Flott. Anybody else on defense?
I mean, Nick McLeod had 2 pass breakups. One on Terry McLaurin, another one on Logan Thomas. Like, now the Logan Thomas one was more of a bad Sam Howell throw, but the Terry McLaurin was like a curl route, right? Which is like, if you're Terry McLaurin, you got Nick McLeod on you. Like, I'm gonna dust your ass up on this side. I'm gonna route you up real quick, easy. And he had a pass breakup on that. And then in the run game, right? You held their running backs to 61 yards on 17 carries, 3.6 yards per carry.
Brian Robinson stinks.
Chris Rodriguez, by the way.
Chris Rodriguez.
You were slandering because of his pass.
No, I did
living
not.
on his future. I think he's a better back. He did have more yards on less carries than Brian Robinson.
Highest EPA per play out of all the running backs.
Okay, now they're playing a zone team, right? But this is a few games in a row where Okereke is playing fast in the run game. And that's what I want to see out of him. Like, that's what I want to see consistently out of him, right? And I think that's what stopped him from being like a great linebacker, is like, because you saw him be good for his zone, right? And again, he could be a little stronger. Like, he's not blowing up blocks, but he was playing fast. He had like 5 or 6 just run stops. He didn't have any tackles for a loss, but like at the line of scrimmage plays. And also was used very well as a blitzer and some of their stunts and stuff, obviously being, at the line of scrimmage with that stuff. So yeah, I mean, Okereke was just flying. Getting downhill, which is what I really love seeing out of him.
Yeah.
So you had McLeod, 2 pass breakups, other defensively. I mean, they just went. The pass rush got after them all night long. The DBs held up for the most part pretty damn well, and then they stopped the run. Like the defensively, and again, they. Now I don't want to be like, oh well, they only scored 7 on a muff punt, because they did go for 4th at the end of the game, and then they had a blocked field goal, Leonard Williams. So it evens out eventually. But again, only 7 points. You gave up 14 to Buffalo. Miami, not a good defensive game at all, but you did hold them to 31 points, a team that can really boat race you. And then 17 points to Seattle's offense, because I think they scored 24 in that game. You had the pick 6.
How many points did they allow to Miami in the first half?
14. Or no, I think 17. It was 17.
All right, sorry. So then here's the talking point. The talking point is the last 4 quarters in the first half. So that's the last.
That would be the last 6 quarters.
Nope. Let's talk. All right.
The last 3 first halves, they've allowed 17 points total.
And how about the last 2 weeks in the first half? The Giants have allowed 0 points.
Yes.
That's the talking point. That's the talking point. All right. I'm at a point.
Actually, you know what?
Oh, don't tweet. No, stop. No, you can't do this to me again.
How many did they allow in the first half? Oh, they allowed 14 in the first half of Seattle. Because it's going to be like the Giants have allowed 3 points.
Come on. Do not take that point. No, do not tweet that out.
Giants have allowed.
No, come on. Don't. No, you're not typing. Oh, now you unmuted. Now you unmuted the computer. All right, so I'm at a point with this
you need
defense.
to schedule that tweet right now, or I'm going to tweet it.
All right, I'll schedule it. I may even tweet it tonight. I'm at this point with this Giants defense, Bobby. I'm looking at the teams that we have coming up. Let's do this. Let's get into it. We have a lot of time left. Jets, Raiders. Dare I say, the Giants defense played well week 1 against Cowboys. It was a weird, wonky game where from the flip of the coin, it wasn't even the game, and the Cowboys won it, basically. Then you have the Commanders again. Then you have the Patriots. Then you have the Packers. Then you have the Saints. And then it's not until Christmas Day where you're playing the Eagles, which is that's like the next legit offense besides Dallas. Dallas still a legit offense. If we are coming on a post-game pod and we're being disappointed in the defense, especially in the next 2 weeks, I'm like, damn. I now have like real expectations for this Giants defense to really control the game.
Yeah. What really sucks is that you didn't beat Buffalo or Seattle, which were so winnable games.
Yeah.
And right now you'd be 500 and you'd be want to be 500, you'd be 3-4.
You're in it though.
Being like you're good chance of being 5-4.
You're in it.
Here's the thing: is this, and I don't want to do a Jets preview, but we were talking in the car on the way to the warehouse. I think they can fucking hold the Jets to 10 points. That pass rush of the Jets reminds me of Dallas, where it's not like a couple of good guys. They just have a rotation of guys that are just coming at you. And then you have Quentin Williams, who's like the third best pass rushing defensive tackle in the NFL. Yeah. But again, we'll do a Jets preview when we get to a Jets preview. Maybe we'll have. Do you think we should have Rosenblatt on this week?
I think we should have Rosenblatt on this week. I think that's actually a great idea.
Okay, we'll have Rosenblatt on this week.
A great idea. But I mean, do you agree with the expectations with this defense? Like, I think they've even
the next 2 games they should dominate the Jets and the Raiders, right?
I mean, they've even forced turnovers.
If they lose those 2 games, make us come on and talk about how the offense lost the game.
Sure,
right? Like this, the expectation for the next 2 games defensively is to dominate,
absolutely dominate for sure. But we talked about Bobby Okereke, how he looks really good. He's really fast. He's really instinctual. You mentioned how he's kind of like the heart. We were talking like before we went on, how he's kind of like the heartbeat of the defense right now. And it really, if I had to like, what's like the clicking moment? It's like when Bobby Okereke really started clicking in this defense, that's when I feel like this defense started clicking. I mean, I understand they allowed like 500 yards against Miami, but that's when they started to force those turnovers, and Bobby Okereke basically forced those turnovers.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was a good tweet I had.
Yeah, that was a good tweet.
Okereke has been playing really well, and like you said, it's been kind of like pushing this defense. And but I think a big part of that is stopping the run.
Yeah.
Right. And again, they haven't been like they weren't dominant against the run versus Buffalo, but they made enough like really good plays to get them a little off schedule. Now we can do our special teams conversation.
Okay.
One, if Thomas McGahee's not fired in the offseason, I said I'll tweet about it every day. Now, I don't want to go too crazy on blaming McGahee for guys muffing punts, and this is more actually not a shot at McGahee. This is at Shane and Dable. When we did our 53-man roster prediction in June, right? It's an episode we do every year.
Yep.
And we do it like assuming health. We looked at the wide receiver room, and we said, and we both cut Sterling Shepard, but we said, and you know who did we cut him for?
Jamison Crowder. Now, we both said this is most likely not going to happen. And we were continuously told over the summer by the beat.
They're not going to cut Sterling Shepard.
They're not going to cut Sterling Shepard.
Which they didn't.
Correct.
But we're like, it would kind of make sense if you're going to keep a 6-wide receiver to have him be a special teams contributor, someone that you can trust. And we specifically mentioned as a returner, and he had his own muff punt, but he's been a good returner for Washington. He was special teams player of the week last week. And instead, you're forcing Eric Gray there because you want to find some role for him because you liked him as a draft pick. You do not need to force him there. You know what? How about cut Gary Brightwell and keep Jamison Crowder or find a returner? Like what is Gary Brightwell's purpose on this roster?
Well, he's not Eric Gray's like the power back if you want.
Yeah, he has no offensive production. Special teams, he's not involved in the return game because you have Eric Gray back there. And then they were throwing Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton has never returned a kick in the NFL. I think he returned 1 kick in the NFL before this. Like he's not a returner, and I know his hands have been good this year. He's not the most trustworthy guy in big-time moments with his hands. And we've seen that in a couple Commanders games in particular. So it was just like, I can't, I mean, the crowd was getting loudly, sarcastically cheering them for not muffing punts, right?
Some videos.
And again, it will lead to losses, right?
It almost did.
You play a team that's not as dysfunctional as the Commanders right now, despite that they're 3-4 and have some decent plays and highlights. Like you play any other team. If we're playing any other team on our schedule besides the Cardinals, like you lose this game because of special teams. That's a weird thing to compare. Because
I was convinced after the Sterling Shepard fumble. I said, I think we just lost the game. I think we just lost the game. And thank God, like, I'll go into miscues by Washington now, too.
You have to get a returner on this roster.
Like, I'll go through some miscues by Washington, and that's what I'll go back to my beginning point where I think Washington did more to lose this game than the Giants did to win it. Why not go for it 13 minutes left down by 7? Because then you have the blocked field goal that comes right away. Washington's driving down the field. They had like a 70-yard drive. They're finally moving. That's when they started doing those out routes, and they were getting Sam Howell out of the pocket.
Oh, yeah, that was the one thing they had success on defense was they just started rub routing us in that last drive. Like even the one that wasn't like at the line of scrimmage rubber, and then you had the 4th down conversion they had where they faked a rub route with Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
And then like even like that Byron Pringle big play they had, it was kind of like they ran into each other on like a scissors concept.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's an issue when you do play man. Like that was actually a good. We shit on the Commanders coach. That actually was a good adjustment towards the end of the game. It's like, all right, let's get Hal out of the pocket and run the rub routes.
Thank God Ron Rivera wasted a timeout and challenged on the Hyatt catch in the fourth quarter.
Oh yeah, they would have got the ball. Yeah, again, another coaching gaffe, like where they would have gotten the ball back most likely.
And they also had. I mean, you can't. I'm not going to blame this on coaching because if a player, Daron Payne, went down and got hurt, and then it was the 10-second runoff. That's not coaching. I mentioned the second half adjustments where. They finally saw that the Giants were running single high safety with Terry McLaurin versus young corners. You could take advantage of that. Continuing to run Brian Robinson out there. I mean, the Commanders are a mess. They are a flat out mess. And I'm going to say it again. They clearly did more to lose this game than the Giants did to win. If the Giants offense had even 50%, 25% of the offense that they had in the first half, then that talking point is non-existent, and the Giants kicked the shit out of the Commanders. Instead, it was a game. There was no reason it needed to be a game, and special teams gaffes, again, almost gave the game and gives points to the opposing team.
All right.
Find a returner.
Yeah, go get a returner this week. Stop fucking around with it.
Want to talk about the tailgate?
Yeah, let's talk about the tailgate. It was a good time.
What did you think? Did you have a good time?
I had a very good time.
This was your first one
Can I
of the
be
year.
totally candid though? Like, well, is it bad if I'm totally candid?
I know where you're gonna go, but you could be totally candid.
Well, I want to be candid. So, because there's a lot of people listen to this podcast. No big deal.
This is our first
only
year.
6 years, and so that's why I want to be candid. Is I was very frustrated because one, the food was not hot, right? And we got the food the day before, and this is our fault. And, you use those little, torches underneath. And that's not meant to heat food up. It's meant to heat a ward. So the food, it got it wasn't like ice cold, but and it was it wasn't like eating throw up because it's cold, but it's like you want to eat hot food. It wasn't hot. Also, we had a lot more people show up for this one. Thankfully, I was like, we're going to run out of alcohol. We need to buy. So I went out and bought 90 beers last night because I was like, I do not believe we have enough. Now, we made it to the last 10, 15
minutes, yeah.
Where we were on that. So I'm fine if people didn't get their last 10 minutes of alcohol. We don't want you guys getting wasted either. So I had a great time. It was a great time, no doubt. But I think I want to challenge, better to be more safe than sorry with tailgates going forward. Yeah,
and I will say, this is our first year doing this. Shout out to the Cottage. Thank you so much for providing the food.
Thank you to the Cottage. The food was great. It's just because of our mistakes, it wasn't hot.
So Candlewick Diner and the other providers, they bring the food. They bring the food to us. So that was a little bit of a different scenario there. But the Cottage in Jersey City is very good. You should go and you should check them out.
Yeah, go check the food. The food was great.
Yeah, it was very good.
I was frustrated.
I also love the location in Jersey City. But this is our first year.
But someone who doesn't mind eating food that's not piping hot, I loved it. The food was great.
This was our first week that we're actually rolling out providing alcohol as well. So I appreciate everybody showing it. It seems like everybody had a great time. We did some Giants trivia. There was Madden that was going on too. Jolly Olive, Paxton Elrod came through. Bill, our events guy, and Jeff, our producer. They do a great job every week.
Yeah, everyone did a great job.
That's really the bottom line is we always have fun. And I will say every single week, anytime that we do something with our community is my favorite thing ever. And I honestly, I am now at a point, even when the Giants win, especially when they lose, but even when the Giants win, the most fun part of my day is the tailgate. It's just seeing people.
You forget that there's a game, so it was very good. I think I'm probably being harder on us than most people are. But yeah, I had it. It was a great time. And again, thank you to the Cottage. They were great.
So Candlewick Diner.
And we had plenty of food too, which was nice.
So Candlewick Diner, they are catering next week for the Jets game. Manny said before the year.
I went and had lunch there on Saturday. It was very good. Very good.
Manny said before the year, he's like, there's not any game that I'm going to volunteer specifically to do. You tell me what games you want me to do. But he says, I want to do the Jets game because he's coming for blood. He will not put blood in the food, but he's coming for blood. So imagine. So Manny, Candlewick Diner, they're providing food this Sunday. You can click the link in our description to get tailgates, to get tickets to our tailgate. If you don't want to get tickets, then you are more than welcome to just come hang out with us. But we're providing food, we're providing alcohol, we're providing a good time. There's Madden every single week. I kind of like the Giants trivia. I may do that again. And I even have this really weird, quirky idea. It was really cool when I came up with it in August, but now I don't know if I want to do it. Like a paper airplane race. Like where we all build paper airplanes and we throw them and then we all burn them. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, I think
It's
starting
weird, right?
fires in the parking lot gets you in trouble. even
Nope,
though
I
did have
disagree.
a picture of the gas can.
I disagree.
That's where you can get in, especially when you got people drinking. So I would actually, you know what? I'm just going to advise against that. Don't burn them because that's going to lead to fires. And I know drunk people, including myself, when I'm drunk, that I would.
You would like.
I
that.
would be. I wouldn't be just burn them afterwards. I would be throwing flaming paper airplanes. It would catch something else on fire. It'd land on lighter fluid. It's just a bad idea. So do not burn them. But make them. Just don't burn them. Now that I said that, people are going to burn them.
Oh, we're going to burn them.
We are not liable for any flaming paper airplanes.
I also want to make.
We need to put that on the flyer.
I want to make tombstones because it's Halloween. It'll be the Halloween game. I want to make tombstones of the teams that we've defeated so far. So that's 2. We'll have a tombstone for a pig, and we'll have a tombstone for a cardinal. Just put a picture of a dead pig and a dead cardinal on a tombstone.
You know you're not going to get anything out of me with holiday comments.
Well, how about with dead animals?
We could do that.
You like your dead animals?
I don't. I like videos.
You like videos of
I like taunting the other team. So yeah, stadium was awesome. The throwback thing was cool. Oh, and they kept the back in the New York groove.
And back in the New York groove. I will say that was the happiest that I got at MetLife Stadium this year. I was like, I think we bullied them into bringing it back because it was gone. Now back in the New York groove, I didn't know was gone because they didn't score a home touchdown this year. So,
but did they do it at preseason games?
It was weird. It was it was different. It was very remixed. This was still remixed, but it felt like back in the New York groove. Like you got the beat and like you got it. Now they did. I know for a fact they moved those chains because the Giants did get first downs at home this year. They brought that back, and I think it's because I tweeted at them. Was it Thursday night or whatever? Thursday night, I was like, bring this back or else.
And we said on the pod, I was like, because we're like, guess what? There's a lot of young people who listen to this podcast. Good chance that person listens. Like, don't. This is not a tradition to take away.
This is non-negotiable.
Okay, I'm looking at Twitter. Why is Boston Scott trending?
Oh no! Well, it's Sunday Night Football.
Oh, he returned a kick close to the 40.
Oh, okay. Well, let's actually go and watch that game.
Yeah, let's. I was thinking about putting it up on YouTube TV, but I knew I'd get too distracted. All right, that's an episode. We'll be back for a victory mailbag, which is a fucking relief. It's gonna be a relief to talk about a win for a week. Also, it was very frustrating the first win of the season that you knew you didn't get a full week to enjoy it because we had Thursday Night Football. It's like you just knew. It's like, oh, thanks a lot. Same thing that happened in 2020, where it's like we got a first win of the season and then we have Thursday Night Football. I can't even enjoy the first win of the damn season. So we're gonna enjoy this one. Enjoy the Victory Monday. We appreciate you guys. See you back in Florida. Justin, I'll see you. I'm not even going to fist bump you at the end of the pod. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Did we do the fist bump at the end of the draft or training camp? Anyways, we'll see you. I'll see you in a couple weeks. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. We appreciate you. Until then, let's go Big Blue.